Now, the language of the Kabbalah is a language in the full meaning of the word. It's extremely accurate, both in the issue of root and branch, and also in the issue of cause and effect. Okay, so we get in the language of Kabbalah, we get intentions, why things happened. All right? Okay. Also, in this language, we can talk to the very individual element and get right down to the absolute detail, which is not what you'll get in the Tanakh. Okay? However, it has one very great deficit, and that is it's very difficult to acquire. All right? And except through a great teacher, a great sage, who also received it from a sage who understood it himself. Okay? And this is a very, very difficult language to attain. And that's the reason why we need Rabbi Ashlag. Because the language of the Zohar itself is not... I've no idea. I don't have any understanding at all of root and branch, okay? So Rabbi Ashlag took the language of the Zohar and explained it, what root and what branch are being talked about here in every possible time, okay? So the languages we're going to be looking at... This one?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, I
Don't put it there. No.
Yeah, we all want to see you.
Okay, very good. So the languages we're going to be looking at today, and for the next 8 weeks, are the language of the Tanakh, the language of Midrash, and the languages of Kabbalah. Okay? And then we're going to look at how these all throw light on this very strange episode of Jacob and Esau.
But Rabbi Ashlag is one of the people who understands. He's not the only one.
No, everybody connects with the one they connect with. Okay, the one I'm learning is Rabbi Ashlag. Now, you raised a very important point, actually. Whilst we're learning the work of Rabbi Ashlag, we can't be learning the language of another sage. All right, they all had their own particular language. All right, so even if I say something which you might have heard it differently from some other sage, okay, we just have to put our previous understandings in a corner for the moment, be here present with the material that we're learning and how we're learning it, and pick it all up as we go out and integrate it or not as you want on your way out. But we won't be able to take any time at all to compare ideas from other Mefarshim, because it's going to be hard enough to get through what we're going to get through, Ezrat Hashem, as it is. Right, so let's start off. That was all the preliminaries. Well, there was a bit of the preliminaries. Now, if we start off with the story, we're going to be starting with the story of Toledot. Okay, it's Bereishit, chapter 25, verse 19. Okay, is where Toledot begins. And this is the Toledot of Yitzhak, and Rivka gets pregnant. All right, and that's in verse 22. All right, and so she's got a very peculiar pregnancy, and this is really the beginning of this story. V'yitvotzetzu habanim b'kirba, v'tomeh im ken lama ze anochi, v'telech lidrosh et Hashem. And the children were running around inside of her, okay, and she said, what on earth is this? And she went to ask God. All right? Now what follows is very fascinating, because if you look in the Tanakh, this is the only time that we have that any record at all of Rivka praying to God and she talking to God. This is the only record. All right? We don't have any other time that she got a direct revelation from God. So what he has to say is very important to her. All right? Vayomer Hashem la, shnei goyim bevitnech, u'shnei le'omim mimayach yiparedu, u'la'om mila'om ye'ematz, v'orav yavod tza'ir. You have 2 nations in your belly, and 2 peoples in your guts will separate from your guts, and one nation will fight the other nation, and the older will serve the younger. All right? So this is a prophecy which Rivka gets right at the very beginning of the whole story. Now, you've all heard the Midrash, okay, that every time, every Rivka passed Avodah Zorah, Esau would kick to get out, and every time Yaacov passed a shiur or Beit Midrash, Yaacov would kick to get out. Now again, that's how Midrash works, but you don't take it literally. There weren't any. They were living in a tent, in a desert, and the only thing nearby was a well. Okay? All right. So the Zohar here explains what she noticed. Okay. So what we're going to learn here is in the Zohar. All right. And we're going to start right from the beginning, and it's page Lamed Base.
Cell phones off, please.
Yeah, really.
All of them.
Well, I don't think I switched mine off either, so I have to find one. Oh well. Right, anybody who's not read Zohar before, this is how to find your place on the page. Alright, at the top you've got the Zohar itself, given by Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. In the bottom you've got the Perush of Rabbi Ashlag, it's called Perush haSulam. Alright, and in the middle you've got references. Okay, so that's how you can get yourself orientated on the page. Alright? It's a different Perush. It's a very good one too. But this is the one like I say, you can't do too much, and I stick with Rabbi Ashlag. V'yigdelu hana'arim. I'm going to read the Aramaic first. V'yigdelu hana'arim. Sitra da'avam garim lon
Wait, I don't even know where you are.
It's
Sorry,
on
I'm
Gimel.
Gimel.
Got
Yeah.
the bottom left. Got it.
On bottom right there.
Yeah, I'm Gimel at the top is the Aramaic. Okay, sorry, I should have pointed that out. There you go.
This is the chumash.
Okay,
This is the Zohar.
all right. Very
Are
good.
we sharing? Okay.
All right. V'yigdelu hana'arim. Sitra da'avam garim lon litgadala. Uzchutei se'alon. Uhava machanech lon b'mitzvot. Dichtiv. כי ידעתי למען אשר יצווה את בניו וגומר. להשקעה יעקב ועשיו, ויגדלו הנערים, ועשיו איש יודע ציד וגומר, אמר רבי אלעזר כל חד וחד, יקורש לאורכי דע לסתרא דמהימנותא ודע לסתרא דעבודה זרה. Okay. So, V'yigdelu hana'arim. So if we go back to our Tanakh, you never ever learn Zohar without your Tanakh handy. Okay, always keep your Tanakh absolutely handy. I just lost the place in mine. All right. Okay, so okay. Now, so V'yigdelu hana'arim is verse 27. All right. So the Zohar is going to be looking at verse 27. ויגדלו הנערים, ועשיו איש יודע ציד, איש שדה, ויעקב איש תם יושב אוהלים. So the Zohar is first going to look at these words, ויגדלו הנערים. What does it mean with ויגדלו הנערים? And the lads grew. Alright? And Esau was a man who knows hunting, a man of the field. And Yaacov was a pure man who sits in the tents. So V'yigdelu hana'arim, the first thing that the Zohar is asking, what does it mean by Yigdelu? Does it just mean they grew physically? Or does it mean anything else?
They grew up.
Could be spiritually too.
Could be spiritually too. Right, exactly, that's what the Zohar says. Hatzad shel Avraham, the side of Abraham. Dahainu tzad yamin shu chasadim, I'll explain this in a minute, which is the right hand side, which is the loving kindness. Garam lehem litgadel, caused them to grow.
Where are you reading that?
Sorry, in Perush haSulam, down below.
Down below.
Yeah, same thing, Ayin Gimel.
Okay, got it.
That's it, okay. Okay, Garam lehem litgadel, caused them to grow. Uschuto azarotam, and his merit helped them. He would teach them mitzvot. Because I know him in order that he will keep his teach his command his children. And the word et, this is how accurate the Torah is. The word et has got meaning. The word et banav means including his grandchildren. Okay? Et bal avot Yaakov and Esau comes to include Yaakov and Esau.
Is that a pasuk?
Yeah.
Where is it?
I'll tell you where. I wrote it down this morning on one of my pieces of paper.
Don't take your time. I'll
It's okay.
שגם הם בכלל.
I can't remember. I wrote it down.
Okay, I'll find it.
Oh yes, Bereishit Yud Chet, verse Yud Tet. There you go.
Gracious, Yud Chet.
Yud Chet, Yud Tet. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you can look it up after. Okay, so the word et comes to include Jacob and Esau, who are also included as his children. And according to this understanding, the explanation of Yigdulu Anarim is Shenigdulu b'kedusha, that they grew in spirituality. Okay? Ela she'achar kach sarach Esau, except that afterwards, subsequently, Esau went in the wrong direction. The word sarach is not such a nice word.
Off the path.
Off the path. The word sarach actually means
Stink.
okay? But Rabbi Elazar cholek al zeh, כמו שיקבע להלן. But Rabbi Elazar disagrees with this interpretation, as we will see subsequently. All right? V'yigdelu hana'arim, and the lads grew. V'hi Esau, and we said it was oh gosh. V'hi Esau, what was it? Ish Said v'ish Sadeh, something like that.
Yedidah Cohen.
Ish Yodeh Said Ish Sadeh. Right, thanks. Okay, Ish Yodeh Said Ish Sadeh, and Yaacov is Ishtam Yoshev Oalim. Right, now here we really have to stop and figure out what this means. Okay? And this is where we need our chart. All right? Right then. We learn from the story of Rivka's pregnancy that they had two different natures, okay? The nature of Yaakov and the nature of Esau was already present in the roots of their souls, to the extent that the way they were behaving inside her belly was already evident, okay? Now, where does the nature come from? Where does our nature come from? And in order to understand this, we need to go right the way back to the very, very beginning of everything. Okay, so if we look on our chart, okay, the chart starts with the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite, all right? And the infinite, which is God, okay, has the essence of the purpose of creation. That is the will to give goodness to all created beings. God wants to give goodness to all the created beings. That's the reason he did the whole creation, to bring forth his creation in actual practice. Okay? Any problem with that? Everybody okay with that? All right, okay. Now that desire of God, which is called the desire of the light, okay, which is the light, for all the goodness, all his goodness that he wants to give is called the light. And that automatically created a vessel for the light, which is the will to receive all God's goodness. Because if there's no desire to receive it, there's no place to put it. Okay? It's very simple. Alright? And in the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, everything is completely in harmony, in the inner meaning of he and his name are one. Hu u'shmo echad. He is the light, Shmo is the vessel, and they're all sababa. They're all biyachad. Okay? They're all very good. However, this is how the creation actually starts to unfold. How it goes from the hidden to the manifest. All right? And what is that manifest. What happens is the vessel, which is also part of God, remember one is one, it's not two, it's one, so it's in the will of God also that all this happens. The vessel wants to be even more like the light. Remember they were one, but it wants to be even more like the light. It wants to be like its root, like its origin, like every son wants to be like his father, same idea. And it wants to be giving just as the light is giving, okay? And so what happens is that the light leaves the vessel, and we first have in the concept which is called tzimtzum, and we have an empty vessel, and we have the light, okay? And then when the vessel finally understands that by receiving some of the light, it's actually giving to God, it's giving pleasure to God because He wants to give to us, okay? Give to the creation. When it understands that, then it's able to receive for the sake of giving, all right? But it's only able to receive for a certain amount of the sake of giving, and the rest of the vessel it's not able to use, it still remains in the dark and empty, okay? So now we have a little bit of vessel which is able to use for the sake of receiving the light which God wants to give, because it's able to do it only for the sake of giving, pleasure to God. And the other bit remains, well, I just want to receive, you know. And that is most of it. So now we have the fact that reality divides into two main elements. We have the framework of holiness, which is the will to give unconditionally, just as God gives. And we have the framework of evil, which is the original will to receive for oneself alone.
That's the original.
What?
You said the original will was to.
No, that's the original.
That is in fact the original will, because in the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, we've got the light which is all giving, and we've got the vessel which is all receiving. Okay, so in fact that is the original will, but in the Ein Sof it didn't matter. It's after that the vessel made this decision that it only wants to receive in what's called affinity of form with the Creator, in a way which is consonant with the same desires of the Creator, and it, if you like, invents a new way of receiving, which is only receiving for the sake of giving pleasure to God, okay? All right? And that becomes the framework of holiness, and what most of the vessel remains in the framework of just, you know, I just want to receive, okay? Now,
That's a whole class.
what?
That
That's a whole class right there.
whole class by itself.
That is in fact a whole class by itself. I'm totally sorry, but of course it's a whole class. I mean, it's actually the whole of the first volume of the Zohar is just on that idea. So, but you know, we're going to have to manage with what we can do.
Can we take a vote on how many people are lost at this point? I'm lost.
You lost. Everybody else lost.
Okay, those that are lost, raise their hand.
Huh?
If you could just sum it, maybe you could just summarize it.
Okay. All right. I'll give you an example.
Well, I understand that a kli, you have a jug of water.
Let her say it.
No.
Let her say it.
But when you
One second. Yeah. All right. So So let's do it like this. Rabbi Ashlag gives the example with a parable. All right. So let me tell you the story. Stories are always good. You can always understand things through stories. You've got a host, okay, and man knocks at the door. He's very hungry, okay, and the host opens the door and he sees a very hungry man on the doorstep, and he invites him in. He says, "Please, will you wash your hands, because and eat something?" And the man says, "No, thank you." Why does he say no, thank you? He's embarrassed. He doesn't want to be a makabel. He doesn't want to be a receiver. We all know the feeling of being embarrassed. Okay. All right. So, what a clever host? What does he do? He starts to say, "Oh," he said, "my wife will be so upset. You didn't eat her chulent. She'll be so upset that we didn't have a guest for so long. We'll be so upset." And he starts to implore the guest until when the guest understands that by actually eating the food, he's giving pleasure to the host. Okay. Then he says, "Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, then all right, just to please your wife." Okay? Now, none of this story works if the guy wasn't hungry, because he's not hungry, there's nothing to do, right? He was hungry, but he didn't want to eat just for his own belly. He only wanted to eat in a way which would be giving pleasure to his host. Okay, similar thing. All right. So we've got here the light is only giving. The vessel, if it just receives, it's like hap. Okay.
Hap.
You know, hap.
Take.
Snatch, take. Okay. But if it's receiving for the sake of giving, all right, which is like I only want to receive for the sake of giving the pleasure to God. Why? Because it's God's pleasure to give to us.
Amanda.
And when the tzaddik grabs that idea, he's able to receive for the sake of giving. Okay? So receiving for the sake of giving is counted as giving, because you're only giving in order to give pleasure to God. All right?
Amanda.
Okay, got that?
That's the question.
A very
Only
quick one.
receiving in order to give pleasure. Receiving in order to give.
Example, the story. It's indicating already independent will.
All right, that's another question. All right, so we're not going to go into that right now. We've got to really stick to our schedule, or we'll never manage
You
it.
said he was only giving for the sake of giving. He's receiving for the sake of giving.
Oh, thank you, Yedid. Glad you're here. He's receiving for the sake of giving. Yes, he's only receiving for the sake of giving. Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, now that ability to receive for the sake of giving is a very, very high ability. All right, and it belongs to the great tzaddikim. Nevertheless, any sort of giving for the sake of giving or receiving for the sake of giving all belong to the side of holiness. All right. When we're in a consonance of form, when we want to do giving the way God gives to us, we're together with Him, and that's called holy. All right. And when we just want to receive, okay, that's the origin of evil. Okay, so you can see from this that the origin of evil came from God also. All right, because the evil comes from the Ein Sof, just as everything else does. So we have the Ein Sof above as one thing, and we have the two possibilities. One is receiving for the sake of giving, which is holiness, and one is just wanting to receive oneself alone, which is the origin of evil. Now, interestingly enough, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden were actually born, it says Adam was born circumcised. What does that mean? It means he was born in the framework of holiness. All right? And it was God's will, and I'm not going to go into this now, it was God's will that they ate from the tree of knowledge, okay, all right, and took within themselves this great will to receive for themselves alone, which was the advice of the snake. The snake belonged to the framework of evil, okay, and now we have, by the will of the Creator, the snake entices Adam and Eve, who eat of the tree of knowledge, and then we have man as a consequence, the man that we know today. The man that we know today has two frameworks in the same being. We have the Yetzer HaTov, which belongs to the framework of holiness, and we have the Yetzer Hara, which belongs to the framework of evil. Of all the created beings that exist in the whole of the cosmos, the human being is the only one which has both frameworks in him. All right? So we all have the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. Okay? So far, so good?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Well done. All right. So the vessels of giving unconditionally, we're just going down the page, are called the Yetzer HaTov. And the vessels for receiving the light of God, as the original ones, as purposed in the thought of creation, can be in the framework of holiness, which is receiving only for the sake of giving, okay? Or they can be just used as is, which would be the framework of evil. All right? And now we come to the different persons, the different personages in this story. All right? Abraham has the vessels which belong to the framework of holiness. His vessels are always giving. He is only chesed. He's only giving, giving, giving. In fact, Abraham is not interested in receiving. Okay? God had to do that whole Akedah just so that he would get some vessels of receiving. But his nature is only giving. He only wants to give. That was what his nature was. Abraham is only giving. Yitzhak, however, is Gevurah. And Gevurah is the basic vessels of receiving. Okay? However, Yitzhak, all his vessels were in Kedusha. He did the Akedah. All his vessels were mutukan, were rectified, only receiving for the sake of giving. And he never ever left the framework of holiness ever. Okay, so he was receiving, he's got vessels of receiving, but they were only mutukan, rectified for the sake of giving, and he's only in the framework of holiness. Now, Avraham, his vessels of giving, belong to what's called the tikkun of creation. The tikkun of creation means that we need to prefer giving to receiving. All right? That's our tikkun. We also have to do this tikkun. That if we've got a Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, and the Yetzer Tov is to give unconditionally as much as we can, and not to use our Yetzer Hara as much as possible. Okay? And that's the tikkun of Avraham. Okay? But what is Yitzhak? What's the additional greatness that Yitzhak brings? He is the vessels for the Gemara Tikkun. He's the vessels that it's not during the Tikkun. He's the vessels for the Gemara Tikkun. That at the end of the Tikkun, also those vessels of receiving will be in Kedusha. So also the Yetzer Hara will be brought into Kedusha. And why is that important? Because those original idea that we had right at the beginning, that the light needs a vessel, okay? And God's purpose in creation ultimately is not that we should be giving to him, but he should be giving to us, okay? That we should be able to receive from him. So the Yitzhak is the Gemara Tikkun. He is the personification of the Gemara Tikkun, and that's why his name is Yitzhak. Okay? Because when we will get to the Gemara Tikkun, we'll all be laughing. All right? And his name is prophetic. Sarah Imenu knew what she was doing when she called him Yitzhak. Those are his vessels, the vessels of the Gemara Tikkun. Okay? And that's why he's got the brachot to give, because the brachot are the blessings for the Gemara Tikkun. That's the importance of these blessings. It's not, these blessings, why did they fight over these blessings? Why were these blessings so important? It wasn't like, okay, you're going out to the world, be a good boy. It wasn't that. It was something that was very, very, very powerful, very important. It was the blessings for the Gemara Tikkun. And Yitzhak was the one who had it in his power to give them. And that's why, and that's why it was important that these vessels are brought into Kedusha. All right? However, we've also got the framework of evil is there, and Esau, bless him, got the vessels of evil. That's what he got. He's not to blame. He could have done tshuva and brought them into Kedusha also, and that would have been the end. Then we would have had Mashiach, and that would have been the end. And in fact, Esau's vessels are greater than those of Yaakov's, because he's got the real vessels of the creation. Yaacov has actually got the vessels of Avraham. He's Tam, Yoshev Halim, just wants to do chesed. That's Yaacov, okay? Now, ultimately, Yaacov is going to have to acquire those vessels of Esau's as well, and that's what the story is about. What happens with these vessels? If Esau has gone into the framework of evil, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And this is all God's plan, of course. All right?
If Esau is going in the frame of evil, he's already in the frame of evil.
Yes, but he's got potential. He was taught by Avraham. He's got the potential for holiness. What's going to actually happen? All right? Okay? Yes?
So for vessels of holiness, why would Esau even want them?
Well, because the vessels of it's a good question. Because the vessels of wills to receive are actually the vessels with which we will be able to receive all the good that God wants to give us, and these are actually greater vessels. They have the potential for much greater light than the vessels of giving. Okay, and these are the vessels of the Gemara Tikkun. However, I mean, people get waylaid by the temptations of Olam Hazeh, and this was Esau got waylaid by the temptations of Olam Hazeh. We're going to learn how that happened. Okay, it's a good question.
Waylaid. What does waylaid mean?
What?
Waylaid.
Yeah. All right, very good. Yeah, sorry, my British language gets in the way. All right, excellent. V'yigdalu hana'arim. So this last paragraph on this page, Lamed Bet, okay. V'yigdalu hana'arim, and the lads grew. Vayhi Esau. 1 minute, I've lost my place again. Vayhi Esau ish yodeh side ish sadeh. Okay. Now, if you remember, Yitzhak went to the sadeh. Okay, when he went to the field, when he went to pray for the mincha. Okay, the sadeh is the field of consciousness associated with receiving. Okay, so it's a code here that the Tanakh is telling us, that the Kabbalah is telling us that these were his vessels. And we're going to learn a bit also what Yodea Tzayid means, all right? Also, knowing hunting, it's more than just, it's not just going to hunt an animal, okay? It's more than that, and we're going to learn what that means. And Yaacov ishtam yoshev ohalim, and Jacob is an innocent, a pure man who sits in the tents of Torah. Right, Ayin Daled, let's move on. V'chen hava b'me'oi d'Rivka. דתמן כל חד עזיל לסתרי. דחד היא השתדלת בעובדים דקושרים. או עברת סמיך לתתה ולנאבד פיקודי דורייתא. אבל יעקב חדי, ודחית לנפקה. וכד חוות עזלה סמיך לתא עבודה זרה. והוא רשע בתה של נפקה והוקמוה. ובגין כך, כד התבריאו ונפקו לעלמה, כל חד התפרש, ועזיל והתמשך בדוכתי, והתחזה לי, ועדה ויגדלו הנערים, והיא עשיו איש יודע ציד וגומר. Right. Now, if we read down below, וכן היה עוד במאה של רבקה, and this was already the case in the guts of Rivka, שכל אחד הלך לצד שלו, each one went into his own tendency. Because when she was busy with Maasim Tovim, okay, or that she went by a place close to a place which was good to do mitzvahs of the Torah, then Yaakov was happy and running around, wanting to go out. Okay, okay, this is more accurate than the Midrash. Do you see? Mm-hmm. All right, it doesn't tell you they weren't in a city, there weren't any Batei Midrash around there. Okay, but if she went to a place, where you could do a good mitzvah, or a consciousness where she could do a good mitzvah, then he would be happy and start running around. But if she went to a place which was close to a place of Avodah Zarah, and of course there were people around all the time who were doing Avodah Zarah, then she felt this essence, of also excitement going on inside her. And we've already explained this. And because of this, when they were created and came forth into the world, each one separated and went to the place according to his nature. And therefore it's written, and the lads grew. So the Torah is telling us Ish Yodeh Tzayid means he's got the vessels of receiving, and he's using them because he wants to gain the light. Okay? Sheyodeh Tzayid Perusho Shaya Mat'eh Anashim Limrod B'Shem Kamo Shitba'eh Lefanenu. And the Tzayid is he was actually deceiving people, Limrod, to rebel against God, as we shall explain subsequently. I find it very interesting that the Zohar uses the word Nimrod to rebel, because there's a very big connection, as we're going to find out, between Nimrod and Esau. Okay, it's the same name, it's the same word, you know. Nimrod is to rebel against God, to rebel against receiving for the sake of giving. He's going to use his vessels in the wrong way, not in the way of Kedusha, and that's the rebelling. Okay. Now, next bit, Ayin Hay. We're going to find out what the Tsfat is later on. All right, not in this lesson. We won't have time. Ayin Hay is Ve'ohav Yitzhak. Okay, V'gomek Yitzhak B'piv. Ve'ohav Yitzhak. That's verse 28. Vayehav Yitzhak et Esau Yitzhak B'piv. V'Rivka ohevet et Yaacov. And Yitzhak loves Esau Yitzhak B'piv. And because now this side is, he's got these vessels of receiving. Now if we go back to our chart, Yitzhak and Esau have the same vessels. They've both got vessels of receiving. Okay? That's why Yitzhak, yes, Yitzhak's got an affinity with Esau. They've got the same. And he had potential for Kedusha. He was taught by Avraham. He had the potential for Kedusha. We know that he had Kibud Avayim. It wasn't completely bad. Okay.
That's why his head is buried here.
Yes, in the Kever Machpelah, yes. That's right. He had the potential that the head aspect was in Kedusha of Esau. All right? He wasn't completely evil. All right? And his father only saw that aspect of him. He didn't see the other aspect of him. Okay? And he loved him, meaning he had affinity of him. They shared the same qualities. Not that Yitzhak used his in for evil, but he had the same basic vessels. Okay? All right? Whereas Yaacov, Rivka ohevet et Yaacov. Rivka had the affinity with Yaacov. Okay? Very good. All right.
Well, can you say something more about that? About Yaakov having affinity? Where they both had vessels of holiness?
We're just going to stick to Zohar.
Okay.
All right? Okay, for two reasons. First of all, because that's what we're doing. And the second reason is because I don't know anything which isn't in the Zohar. I mean, I can't tell you
But you
other
said
things
before
that
the
happened.
Yaakov was chesed as well as Rivka was chesed. So
Rivka was...
She gave the water.
Yes, but it comes from a different root, and that's a different question, and we're not going to go into Rivka so much today. All right? But it is a good question. It's not a good question, it's just that I don't feel capable of answering it. Okay? Which is, not the same thing. It's a good question. V'yehav Yitzhak et Esau. Ayin Hey, there we go. V'yehav Yitzhak et Esau kitzayid b'piv. Ho k'muha dichtiv ish yodeh tzayid ish sadeh. וכתיב הטעם, הוא היה גיבור ציד איש שדה. לקח חלון לבני נשה, ולקוט ללון, והוא עמד דאביד צלותה, וציד לי בקומי, איש שדה, בגין דחולק עדבי, לאו איהי בישובה, אלא בעתה חרוב, במדברה, בחקלה, ועדה איש שדה. Okay, so we look at Ayin Hay in the Perush haSulam. I think when it says Ish Yodeh Tzayid, hu haya Gibor Tzayid Ish Sadeh, that's a reference to Nimrod. Yes, and that's I looked that up this morning. That's Bereishit Yud, verse 10. We're not going to go there now, but
What's a reference to Nimrod?
to Nimrod. Yeah. Okay, I'll show you as we go along.
Waya Gibor.
Gibor Tzayid. That's right. Well done. Kvar Beruchu, we've already explained it. Shekatuv, as is written, kan ish yodea tzayid. A man who knows tzayid, right, to hunt. Ish sadeh, to get, okay. Ish sadeh, a man of the field. V'katuv sham, and it's written in Bereishit Yud, hu haya gibor tzayid. They're talking about Nimrod. Okay, Nimrod was the one who threw Avram Avinu into a furnace of fire. Okay, he was a wicked man. Okay. Ma sham פירושו שהצד דעתן של בריות ומטה אותם ללמוד בשם, אף גם כאן. Just as the meaning about Nimrod was that he was hunt the opinions of people and cause them to rebel against God, so it's the same meaning here. Ish Sadeh, Perusho, a man of the field, meaning Kedei ligzol b'nei adam ulharog otam, in order to rob people and to kill them.
Who are you talking about?
Wait a moment. Esau Amar, and Esau said, Esau said, but he was going to the field in order to pray. Okay? Just as Yitzhak, Shekatuv, as it's written, Yitzhak lasuch b'sadeh. And Yitzhak went out to the field to meditate and to pray in the field. But Said, v'rima et Yitzhak b'piv. So he deceived. So Esau deceived Yitzhak. Okay? He said, "Oh, I'm going out to the field, Daddy." So Daddy, thinking he shares the same kelim, he has got no reason to suspect. Okay? So he says, "Oh, wow, good boy, good duffin, you know." Little does he know that Esau has got other ideas, and the Tanakh is hinting at it when he says, "Ish, what is it? 1 minute. Ish Yodea Said Ish Sadeh," and that's with a reference back to Nimrod. It's the same language. Okay?
Right.
So if you actually wanted to look, you could. It's Bereishit Yud. Why not? Bereishit Yud. Just don't use, keep your finger on the place of the first one. Bereishit Yud, and it's verse 10. Here we go. Well, verse 8 really. Verse 9, sorry. Kush yalad et Nimrod, and Kush gave birth to Nimrod. And he began to be a mighty man in the land. He was a gibor tzayid before God. And therefore it said of Nimrod that he was gibor tzayid lifnei Hashem. That's the only other time the word tzayid appears in the Tanakh before it arrives at Esau. So there's a clear connection. So the Tanakh is making a very clear connection between Nimrod, who was a total wicked, okay, to Esau here, and what was his tendencies. All right. So the so Daddy thought that Yitzhak thought that he was going off to daven in the field. He thought, oh great, terrific. And little did he know, Rima et Yitzhak b'piv, he deceived him. Because he deceived Yitzhak. Nikra ish sadeh, mishum shechalak nachlato eino b'makom yeshuv. Oh, sorry, mishum shechelek nachlato eino b'makom yeshuv, elo b'makom charuv, b'midbar b'sadeh. And he says his nachala, his inheritance, is not in a place which is fit for human habitation, but is a deserted place, in a destroyed place, in a wilderness or in a field, and therefore he's called Ish Sadeh. Ein Vav. Ve'i Tema. Well, we've only got 10 minutes left, so no questions till afterwards now, okay? Ve'i Tema, Hech lo yada Yitzhak, kol ovadoi bishin de Esau. V'har shechinta havat imei, dila sharia imei shechinta, Hech yachil levar chalei Yaacov b'shat devarchei, elavadai. Shechinta havat daira imei bebeita, v'daira limei tadir, אבל לה הודעה לי, בגין דברך יעקב ולא דעתי, אלא בדעתי דקודשא בריך הוא, ואחי יצטריך, דבהי שתא דעל יעקב קמי אבוהי, עלת ימי שכינתה, וכתן חמה בדעתו יצחק, דתחזה לברכה, להתברך מדעתה דשכינתה. Now here we have the crux of the whole story, alright? ואם תאמר, and if you were to say, איך לא היה יודע יצחק כל מעשיו הרעים של עשיו, הרי השכינה הייתה עמו, והיה צריך לידע זאת ברוח הקודש, כי אם לא הייתה עמו השכינה, איך היה יכול לברך את יעקב בשעה שברכו? And if you were to say, how was it that Yitzhak didn't know all the bad deeds of Esau? After all, the Shekhinah was with him. And he should have known all this with Ruach HaKodesh, even if he didn't know any other way. After all, if the Shekhinah was not with him, how could he have blessed Yaakov at the time when he blessed him? Umeshiv. And the answer is, Ela vadai hashchina ita shochenet imo b'bayit. But certainly the Shekhinah was with him, was dwelling with him in his home. V'ayita shochenet imo tamid, and was with him always. Aval hashchina lo hodia oto kadei shebarech la Yaakov shelo midato. But the Shekhinah did not let him know about the bad deeds of Esau, in order that Yaakov should be blessed, not from Yitzchak's opinion, Ela midat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but because this was what God wanted. Okay. V'ken tzarich liot, and that's the way it has to be. Ki ba'oto shah sheba Yaakov lefnei aviv, ba'a imo hashechinah. Because at that moment, when Yaakov went into his father, the Shekhinah went in with him. V'az ra'ah Yitzchak, and then Yitzchak saw, bisichlo, in his inner mind, shu ra'oi litbarech, that he did need to be blessed, that he was fitting to be blessed, shu yitbarach midat hashekhinah, and that he was blessed by the knowledge and agreement of the Shekhinah. Okay. Perush. Okay, explanation. Okay, now here you're going to need me to explain the language of the Kabbalah a wee bit, but don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for. Perush explanation. Ki Yaakov hu bechinat chasadim mechusim. Because Yaakov has the vessels of giving only, giving for the sake of giving. All right, he doesn't have the vessels for receiving the light of Chokhmah, which is the light of the creation. And he was always inclined to the right hand line, which is the line of Avraham, the line of Chesed. Okay. The Esau nimshach kulo mikav small. But Esau was drawn, his vessels were all drawn from the vessels of receiving, which is called the left hand line. V'rosho haya nimshach mikav small to kedusha. But his head was drawn from the vessels of receiving for the sake of giving. His head part was in kedusha. But his body aspect, that body is what comes forth in action, was drawn from the levels of tum'ah as is known. ולפיכך, אם היה יצחק יודע ממעשיו הרעים של עשיו, היה מבט לו לגמרי. If Yitzchak had known of the evil deeds of Esau, he would have wiped him out completely. He wouldn't have given him any blessings at all. I mean, he would have just completely, said no way. All right, he would have negated him completely. There's no way that Yitzchak, who's in Kedusha, would have given blessings to somebody who's in Tumah. Okay? And he would have blessed Yaakov only on Yaakov's vessels alone.
Can you repeat? There was interruption. Can you repeat?
I'll say it again afterwards.
There was distraction for sure.
Afterwards. ונמצא בזה, and we find שהיה מקיים את הרת קו הימין בלבד. He would have only have uphold the light of giving alone. והיה מבטל את הרת קו השמאל. He would have negated the vessels of receiving. Okay? ולא כך היה רצונו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, and that wasn't the will of God. The will of God was that everything should go into Kedusha in the end. אלא הרצון היה, but God's will was, שימשיך אל יעקב כל הרת השמאל שהייתה ראויה אל עשיו. But he wanted that Yaakov would draw towards him all the vessels and the illumination of those vessels, which in fact were fitting for Esau. כי אז יהיה יעקב שלם מכל הצדדים, because then Yaakov would be whole from all sides. Okay? Right, what did you miss? All of it?
The whole last few.
I don't understand why giving, like fulfilling Esau makes Yaakov whole and
Okay, all right.
First, the few.
Okay, I'll go over that again. Okay, that question also
The
fits
last few
in.
sentences.
Okay, very good. All right. Any other questions?
And it sounds like you translated Bimkomo in a very particular way.
I did.
Not instead of him,
in his
but in his,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very
Like-
good. I've got 5 more minutes, which we're going to finish the Zohar, and then I'll deal with your questions then.
I didn't have a question, we were phone calls. And I
Phone
was there.
calls, right. Okay, so let's do that bit again, and we'll manage. All right? Okay, explanation. For Yaakov is the aspect of giving only, all right? And he only gives to the light of chesed, okay? Whereas Esau has got the vessels of receiving on the left-hand side. Even though his head aspect is receiving for the sake of giving, his body aspect is actually drawn from the levels of Tum'ah, as we know. And therefore, if Yitzhak had known of the bad deeds of Esau, he would have completely negated Esau and his vessels completely. And he would have only blessed Yaakov in what Yaakov had. Okay, he said, okay, Esau, that's it. I'm going to bless Yaakov. That's the end of it. But Yaakov wasn't complete. Yaakov only had the side of Abraham. He didn't have the side of Yitzhak. So he wasn't complete, so the blessings wouldn't have been complete. Okay? So it was very important that Yitzhak actually did go blind, and that he didn't know who was there, and he didn't know about Esau's bad deeds, because otherwise the blessings couldn't have come out in a complete way. Okay? And this was not the will of God. But his will was that he should give to Yaakov all the vessels of Esau, okay, as well, so that when Yaakov gets the blessings, he gets a whole blessing, and that Yaakov will be whole from every perspective. Okay? That feel better? Great. Last paragraph, and we've just done it, a miracle. And this is a miracle.
You could have an extra few minutes also. You could have a little extra time if you don't.
Yeah, I know, but people...
No one here will object.
No, okay,
The opposite.
אבל לא עוד תעלה בגין דברך יעקב בלא דעתי. Now what does that mean? I've forgotten. אבל... Right.
It wasn't made known
but
to
he
him.
he didn't let him know, so that Yaakov would not be blessed from Yitzhak's opinion. Because otherwise, if he'd have known the bad deeds of Esau, okay, the Shekhinah did not let him know these bad deeds of Esau, so that Yaakov would be blessed without Yitzhak's knowledge. Because if he was giving the blessings that he thought were appropriate for Yaakov only, that would be only half the blessings, half the light. All right?
Without who's knowledge?
Kamosha Katuv, what?
Without who's knowledge?
Yitzhak didn't know who was there. All right? Kamosha Katuv v'lo hikiro. He didn't know who it was.
He really didn't know?
No, he didn't know.
What about the voice of Yaakov?
He said, well, I'm confused. He says, I've got the hands of Esau and the voice of Yaakov. The one thing he knew was the reach hasadeh, the smell of Gan Eden came in. And he knew the Shekhinah was, he didn't know who it was, but he knew that it was right.
He didn't use, the word said...
But he thought he...
Right, like smelly, from the beginning you said that word was... he didn't know from Me'az v'tamid, she'Esau tamid haya reich shel Shiur1.
Well, no, 1 minute. At that moment, he knew that whoever was there was the one the Shekhinah agreed with. That's what he knew.
But he thought it was Esau? Because he thought Esau had both
It
qualities?
doesn't matter what he thought. He knew that the Shekhinah agreed. And therefore he gave the blessings. And we're going to learn about what happened in the blessings in the last 3 or 4 lessons, okay? Because that's a very, very big topic. Okay, so we're not going to talk about that now. We go along with the Zohar here. He didn't recognize him. Yes, that's what he says. Because he thought he was blessing Esau. And because of that, he drew to Yaakov also the blessing of Esau. Okay? Your brother, Yaakov, came in deceit and took your blessing, the blessing that was appropriate for you. All right? So Yaakov took both blessings, which was what the Shekhinah wanted.
No, both
But I don't
blessings or
understand-
just one blessing.
Both.
Maybe he didn't need the other blessing.
I don't understand why he gave Yaakov's blessing to Esau. If he thought it was Esau, he would bless him what Esau needed.
Yes. Okay.
So where did Yaakov's blessings come into that?
Because
What's-
the blessings for Esau, in fact, also include the blessings for Yaakov, because the kalim of Esau are the kalim of the Gemara Tikkun, which are much bigger vessels than the kalim of Yaakov alone. Okay, so they include the blessings for Yaakov. That's a good question. Huh? Yaakov would have got, I don't know what he would have got, but we can't talk about what he would have happened because we can only talk about what did happen. Okay?
But I meant what was intended. Like,
No, because Esau had both. His head had the kedusha and his body had the tumah. So the blessings for him were more total. And the blessings for Yaakov was only in kedusha, wouldn't have been matak
what
and
actually happened in the last 4 lessons. Okay, so right now the Zohar is giving us a little précis of why Yitzhak wasn't meant to know. Okay, the bad deeds of Esau. Okay, but that's all we're being told right now.
Right.
And we're told that the Shekhinah agreed to the one who got the blessing. But we're going to have to go along step by step with the Zohar and not jump ahead. Okay, just go along with the texts. Okay, these are good questions, but if you want to write them down.
Well, it's not the content, but just why the Zohar thinks that the question that the bracha was more total because it was for Esau than it would have been if it had been for Yaakov. And I think it's because of what it said.
Let's go back to our.
Well,
let's
he's
go
the
back to
Gemara
our chart.
Tikkun.
That Esau had both sides and Yaakov
Let's
only
go
had one
back to
side.
the chart. Okay. The purpose of creation is that God wants to give goodness to all created beings, and the light and the vessels are one. All right, that's the purpose of creation. The Gemara Tikkun is for that the whole purpose of creation be fulfilled. Now, if only one half of creation gets the blessings for the Gemara Tikkun, what's going to happen to the other half? Now, if Esau's deeds were evil, there is no way Yitzhak was going to bless him, all right, for good reasons, as we're going to find out. So what's going to happen to those vessels? They're left forever outside? No. The Gemara Tikkun has to be complete, all right? So it had to be that the carrier for the blessings is Yaakov and Bnei Yaakov. We're the carriers for these blessings, as we will find out, all right? But we had to have that the elements of Esau are also included, so that ultimately when we get to the Gemara Tikkun, we don't just get there just us, we bring the whole world with us. Okay? Yaakov is Bnei Yisrael, but the Bnei Yisrael has to bring the whole world together with us, which is Esau. Alright? So therefore it was important that when Yaakov got the blessings, he took with him the Kalim of Esau too, and that way the whole of the creation comes to its fulfillment, not just, half the chart. Alright?
This is very
Okay,
important.
1 second, let's finish the Zohar, and then any other questions. Okay. ואחיך במרמה ויקח את ברכתך. וזה שכתוב, אלה בדעתי וקודש בריחו. But it was with the knowledge and desire of the Holy Blessed One. אלא כמו שרצה הקדוש ברוך הוא, but this was how God wanted it. שישלם גם מהרת כף שמאל. That Yaakov, when he came in, would be whole with also the vessels which belonged to Esau. וזה שכתוב דברי שעתה, at that moment, and then when Yitzhak saw in his inner mind that he was fitting to be blessed, it was because from the power that the Shekhinah joined with the person who was in the room, okay, that Yitzhak recognized that he was fit for the blessing of the Gemara Tikkun, because these vessels of the small, these vessels of receiving, are the vessels with which one day we'll be able to receive all the goodness of creation. The goodness of creation cannot be received just on the Yetzer HaTov. The goodness of creation needs to be received on the Yetzer Hara as well. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'kol levavecha. It's both the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. If only Jacob had been blessed, then only the Yetzer HaTov would have been blessed. And what about the Yetzer Hara? Stays outside forever? Doomed?
It needs the bracha
No.
even more on some level.
That's why it's a tikkun.
V'yitbarech midatat Shechinta. So therefore Yaacov was blessed midat Shechina. V'kebel habrachot midat Shechina. And he kibel the brachot from the agreement and knowledge of the Shechina. Asher arat Shechina mikava smolhu. For the illumination of the Shekhinah is from the vessels of receiving. Okay? Ze amping. Okay, that's a sphira. You don't have to worry. It's from the side, like right hand side, and the nukra is from the left hand side. Don't worry about those terms. Baruch Hashem.
Whoa.
What was left for Esau to get the last? What was that extra blessing then?
Did get it.
He got
No, but
something.
Yaakov.
If Yaakov got the
the whole thing.
Right,
if he got the
Okay,
whole
yes, right.
thing,
So he got blessings for Olam Hazeh.
for Lamazah.
For Olam Hazeh. Blessings which were fitting.
Okay, just for
For Olam
Lamazah.
Hazeh, yeah. Yes, Esau got blessings for Olam Hazeh. Hooray.
Whoa.
Now, I need a shluchah tea, and then you can ask me whatever you want.
Okay.